and African foreign policy, but also in terms of Russian foreign policy. And I think it's going to be an important kickstarter for us to set the tone of the discussions, to allow us to identify what are our objectives and what we would like to see and achieve by the end of today. So I'm going to invite speakers that will go to the podium on the right side of the U-shaped tables. And I wanted to invite first Mr. Andrei Bystritsky, Chairman of the Board of the Foundation for Development and Support of the VALDAI Discussion Club in Russia. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Does it work? Yes, it works. Thank you very much indeed. You mentioned 4 prominent voices. Probably I can be baritone. Somebody else can be tenor. It's up to debate. Thank you very much indeed. Good morning. It's a great honor to be among you colleagues in the company of such outstanding experts and professionals. Thank you very much for your participation in the conference. I'm very proud to say that the 3rd Russian-African Conference, organized by the VALDAI International Discussion Club and the South African Institute of International Affairs, can be considered open. I would like to express my gratitude to my South African colleagues for their cooperation in preparing our conference. I would like also to express my gratitude to His Excellency Russian Ambassador Roman Abramov and his colleagues, the Russian Embassy staff. And of course, I also want to greet Mrs. Pumzile Mazibuku, Chief Director, South African Department of International Relations and Cooperation. Thank you very much for your participation, colleagues. Previous conference were held in St. Petersburg in 2023 and in Tanzania last year. This year, conference will be attended by experts from Egypt, Zimbabwe, Cote d'Ivoire, Tanzania, South Africa, and Russia. Our most important task is to form and expand a community of African and Russian experts. In such a community, we could discuss the most pressing issues of modern international life. And not only discuss them, but also prepare practical recommendations for foreign policy work. We greatly appreciate cooperation with our colleagues from South Africa. The choice of this country to host the conference is clear. South Africa is also a member of BRICS and G20. The G20 summit will be held in South Africa in the fall. And our partner, the South African Institute of International Affairs, has done a tremendous job of preparing the summit within the Expert 20 called Think Tank 20 as a part of South African presidency in the G20. And personally, I can say we spent a few hours, less than 1.5 days in South Africa, but we had fantastic impressions. And I can say that I don't know how to explain my feelings about South Africa. It's very interesting, and seriously, it's very interesting people, very interesting country. Today we live in challenging, fraught with disastrous world. Political navigation has become an extremely complex matter. The task of intellectuals and the expert community is to help determine the ways in contemporary world. Unfortunately, we see an increasing division of the world. Moreover, hostility and intolerance are on the rise. All conflicts do not fade away, new ones are flaring up. In such conditions, as it seems, Realpolitik, mentioned in the title of our conference, is experiencing a revival. States increasingly prioritize their real national interests rather than on ideological schemes. And we would like to discuss how cooperation between South Africa and Russia is developing within the BRICS and G20 and other institutions. And we would also like to consider interaction in the context of changing world order. In general, there are many questions, but little time. And I mean not only the brevity of our conference, I want to emphasize that the historical time is fast too. The risks and challenges facing all of us are very serious and very dangerous. When I look, for example, at the behavior of politicians from United States or Western Europe, I often get the feeling that they are completely out of touch with the reality of 21st century. And unrealistic policies are direct path to nowhere. But we want to find our way back to our real purposes. But our purpose today is our conference. And I think we can start our walk and continue our discussion. I hope our conference will be excellent, interesting, and full of ideas and serious thoughts. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks once again, VALDAI Club, for this important partnership for us at SIA. I would like to call Mr. Stephen Groost, who is the program head on African Governance and Diplomacy program at SIA, and a program under which SIA's work on Russia-Africa relations falls. Steve?
Thanks, Gustavo, and good morning, everybody. Apologies for starting a few minutes late. We'll try and make up the time during the day. We do have a very full program, and we ask all the speakers please to adhere to the time limits that you've been given. Firstly, let me welcome you all, especially our colleagues from other countries in Africa who have joined us, from Zimbabwe, from Egypt. I won't remember them all, but welcome. A big thank you to the VALDAI Club for working with us. It was about a year ago, Oleg, when we were sitting in this very same hotel when Professor Barabanov asked us whether we would be happy to host the Africa-Russia conference with the VALDAI Club, and we were delighted to do so. The VALDAI Club has a great reputation, and certainly if one wants to follow what's going on in Russia on a weekly basis in English, their website is indispensable, and their events are really interesting. So we're looking forward to a really rich and diverse day. For me, my fascination with Russia really began at school when we were learning about the Russian Revolution, and I happened to matriculate in 1989, and the wall was coming down as we were writing our final examinations, and there was this moment of change, and I think we all sense that we were now in another moment of change. We're not sure what's coming, but we know that the old ways of doing things have fallen aside. And so I was also delighted last year to be able to fulfill a dream to visit Moscow, and many of you in the room we met on that trip, and we are really excited to be furthering our interaction. And I think that brings me to an important point, is that there is a lot of impulse in the world to cut dialogue off, to boycott, to have academic restrictions. And we really feel by co-hosting this event that we want to push back at that impulse, is that you can't know what a side of a debate is saying if you don't engage with them, if you don't debate with them, if you don't discuss with them. So I'm sure we will have very robust discussions today. Also, we've been working consistently on Russia-Africa relations at SIA for the last 4 years, where we've had a dedicated program, and we changed it. It was first called the Russia-Africa program. We now call it the Africa-Russia program, to emphasize where we're coming from, and to emphasize Africa's agency in this. We are certainly witnessing a busy continent. Some have called it a new scramble for Africa's resources. Very different from the scramble that happened in the late 1800s, but a scramble nevertheless. We are seeing many old and new players on the continent, from the Americans and the Europeans, to the Russians and the Chinese, to the Turkish, to the Emiratis, to Israel, to Iran. It's a very busy and crowded field. And I think for Russia the challenge is, how does it have relations with all African countries? Does it have to have 55 strategies or 55 engagements with different countries? And we can see the way that Russia has engaged with countries that are in conflict is quite different from those that are not in conflict. And I'm sure we will unpack a lot of those dynamics today. So I don't want to go for too long, just to again welcome everybody and wish us fruitful discussions as we unravel this very complex composite of Russia-Africa relations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. And without further ado, I would like to call His Excellency Ambassador Roman Amberov, who is the Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Russian Federation to South Africa and Lesotho. Sir?
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, дорогие друзья, a very good morning to you. On behalf of the Russian Embassy in Pretoria, I'm glad to welcome you all at the third chapter of the Russia-Africa Conference, co-hosted by VALDAI and SAIA, two of our leading political think tanks. We're grateful to the team of curators from Moscow and Johannesburg for bringing together top academics and political commentators from not only Russia and South Africa, but also from Egypt, a new full member of the BRICS family, as well as from Cote d'Ivoire, Tanzania, and Zimbabwe. Conceptually, today's event goes very much in line with the provisions of the action plan approved at the highest level by the Russia-Africa Partnership Forum and within the BRICS Summit Kazan Declaration. Dear friends, well, in a nutshell, Russia's official position is clear and simple. Moscow considers South Africa and other African countries as its natural allies and is ready to contribute to the further development of Africa as an authentic and influential center of global development. We believe that Africa is not an arena for yet another geopolitical scramble, but a space of mutually beneficial cooperation. However, some external forces from both sides of the Atlantic seem to be troubled by how Russia-Africa relations have been recently developing in the bilateral and multilateral ways. In our turbulent times, such in-person gatherings of professionals are especially important to debate a lot of timely and challenging questions. One of them is how can Russia and South Africa safeguard and amplify its historical ties? Another would be how BRICS can reproduce and scale up the success of its first 15 years, and a lot more. In this regard, today, I encourage you to have an open, candid, and daring conversation in the best intellectual traditions of the VALDAI and SAIA. I wish us all the success. Thank you so much.
Very much, Ambassador, for those words. And I would like to call Ms. Mazibuko, who is the Chief Director at the South African of International Relations and Cooperation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Program Director. Your Excellency, Ambassador of the Russian Federation, Mr. Roman Abramov, the Chairman of the Board of Foundation for the Development and Support of the VALDAI Discussion Club, Mr. Andrei Bedisky, the Head of the African Governance Diplomacy and Diplomacy at the South African Institute of International Affairs, Mr. Stephen Good, colleagues from DIRCO, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm deeply pleased to be here this morning, and I'd like to firstly convey our apology from my Deputy Director General, who is the leading voice that should be here. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it to be part of this session. I'd also like to appreciate the organizers of this conference, Saya and the VALDAI Discussion Club for bringing us together to engage on this thought-provoking topic of growing urgency. How South Africa navigates its ties with Russia and the wider world in a time of global division, shifting alliances, and contested norms. This is not just about foreign policy, but it's about sovereignty, African unity, and our continent's prosperous future. We confront a world today that is transformed by a war, by wars, I should say, US-China technological competition, trade turbulence stemming from Trump-era tariffs. These tariffs serve as a reminder that even our traditional economic partners can act unilaterally, reshaping global trade overnight. Now, South Africa is currently chairing the G20 presidency, and for the next year, or I should say for the next couple of months, for the next 6 months now, we have a seat at the world's table. South Africa has prioritized issues such as debt sustainability, global financial reform, access to technology, and inclusive economic recovery as we champion the representation of Africa in the global decision-making structures, including the full integration of the African Union into the G20 framework. Ladies and gentlemen, we are also working to ensure that the global economic policy aligns with the goals of Africa's Agenda 2063, the African Union's blueprint for inclusive growth and sustainable development, which promotes industrialization, connectivity, regional integration, and the African Continental Free Trade Area. South Africa has been working hard to cement our G20 priorities in African reality, ensuring that the recovery from global crises does not exacerbate inequality, but rather creates opportunities for inclusive transformation. We are pushing for a new international development funding agreement that resolves historical inequalities while also preparing the global south to respond to future shocks with resilience. We are truly grateful for Russia's support to all our G20 presidency priorities. Program Director, our relationship with the Russian Federation is rooted in history. The Soviet Union supported the anti-apartheid movement when others didn't. And that legacy is real and is deserving of respect. During a recent address at the St. Petersburg State University, our Deputy President, Mr. Paul Mashatile, stated, and I quote, "We view the Russian Federation not only as a strategic partner, but also as a historic friend, whose sacrifices are deeply ingrained in the broader narrative of Africa's liberation. In 2025, we must build upon that legacy and strengthen our cooperation in trade, science, technology, research, and innovation," close quote. South Africa has elevated its engagement with the Russian Federation, and this year held bilateral economic engagements at a high level, including a visit to Moscow by our Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Mr. Ronald Lamola, to co-chair the 18th ITEC session. We also had a working visit to the Russian Federation by Deputy President Mashatile, where he engaged at the highest level with the leadership, including a courtesy call on President Putin, and also attended the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, where he addressed the Russia-Africa Business Dialogue and delivered a public lecture on South Africa's G20 presidency, emphasizing on themes of multipolarity, inclusive development, and African opportunity. These engagements show concrete commitment to deepening ties and expanding trade and economic relations between South Africa and Russia. Program Director, the sessions today and the theme really illustrate what we should be doing as the African continent. And from us as South Africa, we know that our prosperity depends on the integration, peace, and economic empowerment of Africa. South Africa is a leading voice, advancing continental prosperity through platforms such as African Union, and we do not walk this path alone. We are part of a continent whose strength lies in unity and whose future depends on integration and development. Africa's prosperity cannot be achieved if we allow ourselves to be pulled into great power conflicts that do not serve the interests of our people. We therefore must focus on a commitment to continental unity, support for the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, and a shared vision of a developed and prosperous Africa. I wish you well as you discuss these important topics today. And while I won't be able to stay throughout the day, I hope to catch some of the sessions online. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Can you hear me now? Great. Thank you very much. I believe this one works better. Thank you very much really for some very useful insights for us today in these discussions, and really what I would like to commend you, but also to incentivize our participants here, is to start already reflecting on some of those issues, because they will have an important role today in our conversations. We are going now to move to our substantive sessions, but what we thought of doing while we start moving around, because I would like to ask colleagues that are panelists, speakers, or discussants to join us here in front, so that I can give the floor to Prof. Fyodor that will be chairing that. But what I wanted to do is just to talk a little bit about the program of today and what are we expecting to do. I take this opportunity to welcome colleagues that are following this discussion online through our live streaming, and it's really important and really rewarding for us to see the very high interests that this event has showcased. We divided the agenda in 4 substantive sessions, and we felt that it's important that we give enough time into these sessions for us to not only hear from what these presenters and discussants have to say, but also so that it allows a much more interactive conversation between ourselves. The sessions range between an hour and a half and an hour and 45 minutes. Well, Steve is not here, so we are already catched up with time. And the first session will start as the G20 and BRICS assessing strategic roles in an evolving global order. That will go until 11:30 a.m. South African time. We're then going to have a half an hour break for us to stretch our legs, but also for colleagues at home to be able to grab a cup of coffee. Then session 2 will run from 12 o'clock to 1:30 p.m. On humanitarian cooperation and the role of historical memory in Russia's relations with South Africa and other African countries. Both of these sessions will be streamed online, but we will be stopping the online streaming from 1:30, and the afternoon sessions will be closed only for participants that are here in this room. And the afternoon sessions from 2:30 onwards are on bilateral relations between Russia and South Africa, current state and prospects, and the final session, a very timely one, on Trump and the world order, which we felt that on the theme of this program, that is realpolitik responses in a fractured world, the way that we start rethinking our bilateral and multilateral relations is to also look into what is happening and in one of the poles, in one of the cores, one of the superpowers, and the impact that it has on the international order. I wanted to thank you once again, and I'm now going to, and if I could ask some microphones here for the panelists so that I can give the floor to Professor Fyodor Lukyanov.
Thank you very much. I did hope that we will do it without microphones, because in this case everything will function well, but with microphones is good as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to be here, and I can only join all warm words said by speakers before me. For the VALDAI, is an absolutely unique trip. So we do a lot of different things in different parts of the world, but I think I will express the feeling of all of our guests, at least those who came from Russia, and many of us are for the first time in South Africa. The impression, the picture we got is extremely interesting, and here I speak for myself, differs from what I did expect. So South Africa looks, even with such a very short period being here, 2-3 days, but South Africa looks much more interesting, much more impressive, and much more complicated than I could imagine. And I think that this meeting, as Chairman Andrei Bystrytsky mentioned, this is the third conference, Africa conference of the VALDAI Club. The first was in Russia, second was in Tanzania, and now we are here. And now we feel that VALDAI Club, which started this Africa track with some hesitation a couple of years ago, because we never did it before, but now we feel as if, firstly, as if we are very much at home in Africa, and we hope that we will continue those conferences and those trips many years from now, and of course to be able to welcome our African colleagues and friends in Russia. And secondly, now I come to the topic of the panel, the first panel. Of course, this is an absolutely timely Okay. I said that it's more complicated than we imagined, but so I was asked to make a short 5 minutes technical break. I'm very sorry, but